Welcome to Switzerland. It is a lovely place filled with the best things in the world, the best cities, the best fondue, the best skiing, and of course, the best watches. But what if they also make one of the coolest battle rifles on Earth? This is the Sig Sauer AG 551. It is what we call a unicorn, and a part of me wishes I never received it. Because, to quote Joe Exotic, I will never financially recover from this. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's review some history. Sig Sauer AG is based out of Switzerland and originally started producing firearms back in 1860, long before its American counterpart. The SG 550 is the official infantry rifle of the Swiss Army. The 550 went into production in 1986. It was adopted by the Swiss military in 1990 and is contracted for use past the year 2030. But the gun isn't just used in Switzerland. It's commonly used within other European military and police organizations. There are some pre-banned SIG rifles that exist in the US. There's only an estimated 100 to 400 of them, which means they fetch prices upwards of 20 grand when they actually go for sale. The 552 was introduced in 2004 and was adopted as the short barrel variant for the Swiss military. Due to some issues, it was later replaced by the 553, which is the current short-barrel 556 chambered rifle of the Swiss military. The 553 also comes in 7.62x39 and 300 blackout. The Sig 551 has two lengths. The standard length is 17.8 inches, and there's a SWAT variation at 14.3 inches. But that's not what this gun is. To tell the tale of this gun, we must bring in JDI Imports, the exclusive importer of Sig Sauer AG since 2015. Dave from JDI in the summer of 2021 was in the literal basement of Sig AG looking for interesting things that could be imported to America. While exploring, he sees a pile of 16-inch 556 barrels. Upon investigation, he found out that about 1,200 of these barrels had been made by SIG back in the 80s purely with the intent to be exported to the American market. But alas, the import ban took effect and the barrels sat in Switzerland collecting dust never to be thought of again. JDI works out a deal with SIG to produce and import just over 300 16-inch 551s. Approximately 160 were on steel receivers and 160 on aluminum receivers. Of that batch, approximately 50 remain. 16-inch 551 barrels will never be produced again, meaning once they're gone, which makes the story of this Sig 551 the tale of a unicorn. Okay guys, we hope you enjoyed the intro, the little bit of history that we just shared with you about the Sig 551 in this particular case and the 550 series in general. Very fascinating guns, and we're gonna get into it. Before we do, this video is made sort of in conjunction, if you will, with JDI Imports. That's where we got the gun from. So Dave over at JDI is the exclusive importer for all the Sig AG things, and that's where the gun came from. And I can already tell you, I'm buying the gun, and so this gun is staying with me.
As it should.
Yeah, so let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. Beyond that, the 556 we were running from US Brass House.
Yeah, our boys over at US Brass House. Use our code 1911, enter, and then Syndicate, enter. Save you 20 bucks and save you on a processing fee with a total savings of $40.
Yep, per case. So there you go, lovely. We've got that. If you guys need real estate help, let us know. That is what really keeps our channel alive, if I'm being honest with you, is the fact that good dudes like you reach out when you need to buy a house. Not your fantasy stuff, but like actual like real estate deals. We can help you out with that. And then if you're just feeling overly generous with your cash, Patreon does matter to this channel because we try to keep this a shill-free experience for you guys.
And we spend our own hard-earned money often on this stuff, so.
Yes, sir. So let's get into a little bit of a tour of the gun. So I try to think how to describe this thing, and it's a bit tough because it is its own animal.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna try to put a label on it, it feels almost a little insulting-ish, but it's kind of like a Swiss high-end AK.
I'll give you that. Yeah, I'll give you that.
There's some very AKS things.
Some manual of arms stuff. Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So first of all, the field strip is very simple. I will tell you this, just to go ahead and get this out of the way. I have not cleaned this gun. I've not oiled it, greased, nothing since it came in. I've done nothing to it. It has, at the time of filming this, my best guess is 700 rounds through it, 270 rounds to be precise today, and not a single hiccup, not even a sign of any issue whatsoever. And right now we've just been running the shit out of the thing. For some people that may be insulting to have a very collectible type gun like this that you're beating up, but I don't see it that way. I think they're meant to be shot, and that's what we're doing with it. But internally, this is gonna look much like an AK. It's gonna have a reciprocating charging handle like an AK. So that charging handle is gonna do this every time you pull the trigger. So figure out how to get your hand out of the way if for some reason that's an issue to you, which I don't know why it would. If
you're holding the magazine like in the 1970s, potentially.
Sure.
If you're doing that, get better training.
Yeah, any training would teach you not to do that. It's also like an AK in the sense that it is a long stroke gas piston system.
Which is, I was looking at that. You can actually see the piston system in there.
Yep.
As you're racking the gun, which is kind of cool. So.
Yep, 100%. And so long stroke piston, it has two settings. It has a normal and an adverse settings. And you will see what Chris does up there. The piston is exposed. Or
normal.
Maybe the piston's not exposed, but basically the little adjustment.
Adverse?
It is the most simple. Prior to this video, probably the most simple adjustment that I've seen on a piston system is the Sig MCX. Because it's like that, but it's inside the handguard, so you just have to kind of get in there just ever so slightly. That is now the reigning champion for the most simple adjustment on a piston system. And it's just very, very simple. You will also immediately notice, as soon as you shoot this, that this gun throws brass. I mean, it's impressive. When you were shooting earlier, brass was coming, I don't want to inflate the numbers. I want to give you guys real numbers. I would say in the neighborhood of 15 yards, probably about 15 yards, and landing right at my foot. And I was like, that's amazing.
15 yards? What does that come out to?
20? Yeah, about 45 foot.
You think 45?
I'd say at least 30 foot.
I was going to say 30.
Okay, I'll give you 30. How about that?
Yeah.
Cool, 30 foot. But like, that's crazy. And that was, by the way, like on the normal setting. When you switch it to adverse, it's gonna send it even further. It's almost hard to imagine a scenario where you would need adverse conditions, the setting on this. But just so you know, the ejection is pretty spectacular when you see it. Another thing with long stroke pistons is, you know, you'll get kind of a different recoil impulse. And the one on this is fascinating.
I love it.
It's so soft.
I like cannot get over how soft recoiling this gun is.
There's no snap to it.
Not at all.
Which is also interesting because 5.56 is a snappy round because of velocity. It's not a heavy hitting round, but it is a snappy round. This has no snap.
Nope.
Like, it's just little shove.
Yeah.
Very
a slight little.
Yeah.
Nudge.
Like, it's really quite unique. I've never seen a recoil impulse quite like that. Really interesting. You guys definitely see if you ever pick one up and shoot it.
Real quick too, about that recoil impulse, it literally goes straight back into your shoulder, straight forward. There's no like little backing up or backing up into the left or backing up to the right. It's literally boom, boom. I mean, I said it while we were shooting today, probably annoyingly amount of times. Like, dude, this gun recoils so soft that it's, I mean, it's seriously something to experience.
Yeah, man. And that's before it's really been kitted out with other stuff, which we'll get to that. The manual of arms. Let me see this real quick. Let's swap-a-roo. So
there is no one over here,
no
guys.
one over there, so
I'm well out of the way.
everyone,
I'll even scoot a little closer if anyone.
Give me that mag too.
Is that okay, Crispy?
Yeah.
He's fine. So manual of arms is AK-ish and AR-ish and its own thing-ish. So
it's like in the Cold War, a U.S. spy and a Soviet spy had a baby, and this is what came out.
Kinda, yeah.
No offense to Switzerland or Sig or anything like that. This is just a hypothetical situation.
Two dudes throwing out ideas. So paddle magazine release, right? So paddle. So all you're gonna do is push forward, rock your mag, right? So paddle magazine release, which is gonna be much like an AK, even though just a better version of it in my opinion. So magazines are gonna rock in like an AK, but less steep of an angle. So magazine's just going to rock its way in, very simple. On last round, you are gonna get last round bolt hold open. At that point, right, you're gonna go mag out, you're gonna take your new mag, you're gonna go in, and you're gonna have two choices. You can either charge the handle, or for a right-handed shooter, much like an AK, you could charge it, right? Of course, not gonna do it now because it's empty mag. Or flip over to this side of the gun, and you actually push up.
Up of the gun.
And that's fascinating to me.
Because when you rock that mag in, where's your thumb? And all you have to do is go boop.
Yeah, you're moving that direction anyway. You go, okay, well, so I rock this mag in, my momentum is already going this direction. So
Move your hand so the camera can see.
Right, so like the mag's already going this direction, so I literally just thumb up the slide release or bolt release as I go.
Yeah.
Like, why have I never seen that on a gun before? It's a small feature, but it's one where you go, I like it.
And does it feel much different than a standard AR pattern? Like, it feels similarly placed, correct?
Yes, yeah, location is for sure similar.
Yeah.
But the manual of arms is quite simple. It's quite intuitive. Pass that back over. It's nothing weird. Like, yeah, if you only ever shoot ARs, yeah, it's gonna be a different thing. So let's talk a little bit about the barrel, because that is a very unique portion of this. So let's talk about it, okay? I imagine some people starting to get out their checkbooks here pretty soon. So 16-inch barrel. And as discussed in our little intro there about the history and everything, there are about 350 of these total that got imported into the country, and the 16-inch barrels were exclusively made by Sig back in the 80s, exclusively for export. The ban happens and they literally sat in the basement. So Dave from JDI, he's over there, he sees the barrel, he does an import of about 350 of these, okay? And some of this, by the way, Chris is learning.
I have no idea, so
Chris actually hasn't heard kind of the full story, which, funny enough, you actually won't hear until the video comes out, because a lot of it's in voiceover that already happened.
Which means I have to watch our own shit?
Finally. No. So this muzzle device, if you will, is integrated into the barrel. So essentially it's a muzzle device, but it's not. It's just a barrel.
It's machined. It's a machine part of the barrel.
Right. There's nothing to remove there. It's an A2 style device, but it is not an A2 because it does not have the little rings around it where you could index a suppressor, which is what we'll talk about. So this cannot accept a suppressor. You could, and some people will point out that, hey, you could cut the barrel, thread it, you know, do a pin weld, something like that. And to me, it's just such a gamble, given the rarity of you may never be able to fix that mistake if that goes wrong. If someone just has a bad day and they screw up your barrel, or it's like,
you're shit out of luck.
I'm not willing to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to do that on a unicorn gun. Some of the other 550 models do come with A2 devices. Now, I can tell you this, they are NATO spec A2 devices.
Okay.
Here's how I know that.
Good
because
when we filmed some stuff on the B&T RBS suppressors, their QD system, frankly, brilliant move in my opinion on B&T's part, the QD system QDs onto A2 flash hiders, but NATO spec A2 flash hiders. So if you have shitty out of spec flash hiders, they're probably not going to work.
Yeah.
So we had actually a 553 there, and it indexed on.
Oh, okay.
And to me, if I'm being honest, given that Swiss gun, Swiss suppressor, that's the correct suppressor. Like,
I agree.
That's a can that you should run on a 553, right? So, and then some of the other variants do have muzzle devices that can be, you know, A2s that can be taken off. So if you wanted to swap it out with something else, you could. Not an option on this. So just be aware of, you know, that if you get this 16-inch 551.
Which my caveat to that real quick. I was like, Jake, suppress this thing. Like, come on, nobody's going to do it. And the more and more I've shot it, the more and more of it I've enjoyed shooting this and kind of doing the review process with you. I'd love to suppress everything. Everything, Jake.
Sure.
Everything.
Who doesn't?
This gun, I don't think I'd suppress it. Let's just leave it that way. Let's throw an optic on it, get a sling, and let's shoot the shit out of this thing.
Yeah, so on a short barrel variant, yes, I would suppress those.
I'd play with that.
On this is such a battle rifle that I go, I'm totally good with this being what it is. Now, it's going to go through an evolution that we'll talk about as we go, but another thing to note, Sig AG does not make separate civilian and military barrels. It's a military barrel. Like, it's all full auto rated, they're absolute fucking tanks. Like, that thing
so quality control is same.
Yes, like you're getting a military gun here. Like, it's just a military gun that civilians can get.
Because some people argue that manufacturers don't do that.
Yeah. Sig does not make separate barrels.
Yeah.
So it's all same here, guys.
Cool. Hey, that's cool.
So everything's full auto rated. You have some variations in terms of how you can get these. I think JDI, I think they only have this variant, but I'll tell you the 3 different options that you can do. One is no top pick rail, but integrated diopter sights. Okay, so this diopter sight is welded to the gun. Okay, it is integral to the gun.
Good welds too.
Yes.
Good welds.
And the diopter is going to have 4 different holes, if you will. You're going to have a 2, 3, and a 400 meter hold, and then you're going to have an open sight that it's actually going to have 2-dot tritium. And then on the front post, you're going to have a standard front post, and then a little flip up that's tritium. So if you said, hey, low light, no light, I want to run to my more open style tritium sights, rotate your diopter, flip up your front sight. Now you got night sights on your 551. It is a very, very nice sighting system that they have. I'll be the first to admit I'm very rusty at running diopter iron sights, like so.
Or iron sights in general.
Sure. Yeah. So, you know, don't expect brilliance out of the accuracy that you'll see us get out of this. But so option number 2 is actually with and keep in mind on this, you can still add a pick rail. Basically the pick rail indexes into that diopter sight and clamps onto this top receiver here.
Cool.
Okay, so you still can get a pick rail on and throw on an optic. Option number 2 has an integrated pick rail that's welded on, and now you have to get the clamp on diopter sight. Here's the problem with it. The diopter is $600
That's a giant no from me.
on a rear sight.
That's a giant no.
It doesn't actually have tritium, it just has white dots.
So that's a double no for me.
Yeah. Right. So, and then option number 3 that Dave said no one really does because it's just a price thing is both are integrated. Integrated pick rail, integrated diopter, but those are just less common. So that's kind of the one to get because it has the better sights. It's actually going to wind up being cheaper when all said and done because the top pick rail is about $250. It's about $250 on the top pick rail.
I was going to guess 5.
Yeah. So. I mean, on Swiss shit, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
None of it's cheap. And we'll go through price here momentarily. The upper, so the handguard is interesting because the reality is it's totally functional. It's actually good, and it does a good job of keeping heat away. We noticed what we were talking earlier.
Stupid good job.
So on a long stroke piston like an AK, your handguard, and especially if like an Ultimac rail or something like that, gets very hot very, very quick. This stays surprisingly cool, given that in a period of less than an hour, I mean, we dumped about 300 rounds through it. You would think this has got to be starting to get kind of hot. Warm. Yeah, that was it. That was it. Even with no glove, I would have been fine. So it does a very good job of keeping heat away. But the truth is you're probably going to want to swap that out. If you have any intent to make this more of like a combat rifle, lights, slings, things like that, you're going to want to swap that out. B&T, for those of you who don't know, B&T has a ton of aftermarket support that they supply to other companies. HK, the Swiss SIGs, bunch of FNs, stuff like that. So B&T makes a 551 handguard. If you buy the 551, I would highly recommend you get that handguard. It's basically a quad rail except the top, I don't think it has the top quad.
So you're 3, 6, and 9, not at the 12.
I can't remember for sure, but it might be full quad. I can't remember, but at the very least, it's pick rails on basically all sides. And one of those is on order for me. That's going to help with lights, IR devices, sling attachments, especially if you're a lefty. If you're a righty, you actually have built-in sling attachments.
Yep. Right here.
Yep.
And right here.
On the actual diopter site.
Yeah.
Which is kind of an interesting place to clip in a sling. It probably would not be my preference, but I'm sure it works at the same time.
Yeah, you could, I mean, you could always.
You got QD mounts too.
Yeah. Well, that's not QD.
You don't think so?
No, it's just a hole.
I thought that would take QD.
No, because you'd run a string through there, right?
Yeah.
Like a Frank Proctor sling.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So that's how you would do that. The receiver. So there are aluminum and steel receivers. This is an aluminum receiver. It's really not going to matter which one you get. On aluminum, obviously, you're going to shave a little bit of weight. The truth is the durability is going to be fine regardless.
I mean, that thing's thick as shit.
Yeah,
So,
it's a tank. Like, it's a tank. So I would say, hey, look, if you have your pick, I'd probably get aluminum. Throw out aluminum, no problem. Send it on the steel, no big deal. Like, we're probably talking about a matter of ounces that it adds, so not a huge deal. Side folding stock. You demo that, please. So,
which indexes, or you're probably getting to that, but there's a little notch here.
Yeah.
Male end, female end.
Yeah.
And then it just...
And clip it in. Because this is one of my only complaints with the gun is that the latch is too damn stiff.
Now, you said that. It's stiff, but also once that breaks in a little bit...
It's going to break in a little bit. But
also, how often are you going to fold it?
Never. I don't think I have, minus right now.
Other than you like, you know...
Yeah, just sending it. Yeah. So the latch is a little too stiff. Is a big deal? No, not really. I'm nitpicking. Try to give you objective, you know, try to find the pros along with the cons.
But also, that's a pretty... I mean, it shaves the size down on that.
Package.
Pretty good, yeah.
I
mean, that's as, you know...
Yeah.
It's almost the size of my forearm.
Yeah. I mean, sure, why not? Ambidextrous safety that's going to be AR-esque, but the safety I would say is if there's any weak points, the safety's probably it.
I agree.
It's not that there's a problem with like the mechanical motion of it, it's positioning and angles.
It's this angle right here. So basically this angle, guys, right here, as it hits where your safety is, like on my thumb right here, like I can't do it unless I really break that grip.
Yeah.
So when I was shooting today, like I'd be ready, you know, we'd yell threat. Sure. I'd drop it with my trigger finger, bang, 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 and then use my trigger finger to go back to safe.
Yeah. So let me see real quick. So for a lefty, it's actually worse because this bar that you're rotating
fucking way, huh?
is literally right. I mean, literally, like I'm not gaming the system here, right? Like I'm trying to get to it.
Can you do it with your right hand so I can see on the other side? If you're going support, flip the gun around. Because you got those really weird thumbs and you still can't do it.
Tough. Tough. I'd have to break my grip a little. But everyone stay cool.
Yep.
So
there's no one over there.
So if I've been high ready, what I've had to do is basically break my grip so that I'm like this. So safety, like, and even sometimes like safety punch out.
Yeah.
So it's a little awkward. It's actually, I'm sorry, that's low ready. If you're high ready, like you really have to like you have to really kind of game the safety a bit.
Like really move your hand.
You could of course run single side the whole time and just say, hey, this whole thing.
There's no one over there, guys.
I just run like that, right? So it's like you could stay same side, but point being, hey, look, every gun has its pros and its cons. The safety's probably the weak point. It's an overcomable hurdle for sure.
I think so.
But it's just not the best feature of the gun.
Huh.
Let's talk about the trigger. The trigger is actually quite interesting. Much like the recoil, the trigger is its own thing. So, and I've heard people that have these be like, the trigger's just a bunch of mush. You're not wrong, but you have to start to dig in a little to understand what you have. So here's what you got, all right? Take this off, safe. So you have basically a 3-stage trigger. We go wall. I just said a wall. Wall. Break.
Huh.
So, and then reset, I mean, it's a combat trigger, so reset's actually good.
Actually, it's not terrible.
So you go literally wall, wall, break, right? So now, if you're shooting fast, you're just gonna be powering through on that. But if you're shooting deliberate, literally stage 1, stage 2, trigger breaks. So once you understand what it is, you go, I don't hate it, I don't love it. And one feature that you will notice as well is because these were made to work in like very cold weather environments where you might be wearing thick gloves, including even in Utah sometimes where we've got thick gloves on. You go, hey, gloves, trigger guards, kind of problematic. No worries.
Just, yeah, show the camera that, or here, watch. So
no problem.
So trigger guard here, guys. You can either flip it this way towards me or flip it away, which I don't know. I think that's cool.
Oh, I think it's genius.
Yeah, smart move, guys.
I think it's just a thoughtful feature based on the climates that this thing was made to work in. Because clearly it's meant to be a cold weather, you know, oriented workhorse gun.
That 3 walls is interesting.
And they're distinct.
Yeah.
Like no BS, guys. Like you go stage, stage, break.
Now reset.
Reset's pretty nice, actually. I don't think you charged it all the way.
I did. Yeah.
So there's that.
Okay.
Moving on here, one thing that's nice about it, because you know we make some comparisons to AK because I kind of think it's warranted. One thing that's nice compared to an AK, that whole system's sealed up.
Yeah.
Right? So you notice on an AK when you take the safety down, you now have exposed your receiver to taking on debris. This is a very sealed system, much like an AR. So this is going to run very clean. It's going to keep a lot of dirt, debris out, all that kind of stuff. Mags, we'll talk about those briefly. I know it's kind of a long video, guys, but some guns.
This is also a gun you don't see often.
No.
Most people probably won't see one of these in person, to be completely honest.
I never have prior to this.
Yeah, this is cool.
So you got translucent mags. These are 30 rounders. They do have some that are like 15, 20, 25 or something like that, but who shoots those? So these are 30s. These are very hard to get, so don't expect to have easy access to the mags. They're translucent, which is very cool. Helps you obviously see how many rounds you've got. They have 2 versions. This one is flat. This will not fit in an AR like mag pouch. It'll fit in a taco. It'll fit in some plate carriers, but then they have the knobbed versions.
Knobbed versions. So you get 2 knobbed versions. You insert 1 knob, rotate forward, and now they're coupled.
Yep.
So we can go.
Much like what? Remember?
MP5s.
Well, I was thinking G36.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Damn. I don't know why I thought. Yeah.
And it's cool. It's a feature I like. Most of the mags I'll get for this will be uncoupled, just so you don't have those little notches getting in the way of everything. I think it's cool to have 1 pair of coupled mags. It's just a nice.
You should probably get 2. Aesthetically, they're kind of cool.
Yeah, they're just like pricey, which we'll talk about momentarily here. So cost on everything before we wrap this up. The base gun's going to run you about $4 grand. Now, I think that's actually quite reasonable. One thing you have to understand is it does not come with the stock. It does not come with that top Picatinny rail. So it's going to come pretty damn slick, like with 1 mag. Okay, so yeah, $4 grand. It's expensive, but it's
so it didn't come with this?
No.
Oh,
the stock's going to run you about $300. The top pick rail is going to run you about $250, and then the mags are about $65 a piece. Okay. So none of this is cheap, right? By the time you, assuming no lights, no optics, no swapping out handguards, you're gonna run about $5 grand to get one set up with like your base gun with all your mag stock, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And then of course from there, I would recommend probably swap out the handguard, assuming you plan to shoot it. If this is just a collector's piece to you, which for some people it will be, then hey, keep it totally stock. If you're gonna shoot it, you're probably gonna want to swap out a couple of things. But that's a brief overview. Let's take you to some final thoughts.
It's also of note that the Sig 551 is a rare case of a gun that's great in its stock configuration. That said, of course this gun is about to go through a transformation, and we will bring you part 2. But for now, I pose you this question. Have you ever been mad that you discovered a gun because you knew you had to have it, and that meant paying for it? In true Swiss fashion, it's not cheap. But as is almost always the case, you get what you pay for. And the 551, it's a Swiss masterpiece.